Ezra Levant here at the World Economic Forum conference in Davos, Switzerland, and we're at the end of the big promenade. That's the central street in this town, and as always, BlackRock takes over this building and turns it into a private event space for their diabolical plans. And I say diabolical plans with a bit of humor, but it's also pretty true. BlackRock, if you don't know, is one of the world's largest asset managers, tens of trillions of dollars of assets under management. And I want to tell you what they do. You would think, oh, those are turbo capitalists, they're right-wingers, they're free enterprisers. Wrong. They are led by a man named Larry Fink, who is a radical activist. I mean, one of the ideas of activism in the 1960s, when you think about it, is that there were student protests outside university deans' offices. Well, you could do that, or people like Saul Alinsky said, why don't you get inside the office and become the dean yourself? Why don't you take over institutions, a long march through the institutions? And we see that today, whether it's the media or academia or even science. Radical left is inside the building, and that's what it is with BlackRock. The turbo capitalist billionaire who runs it is actually an ideological leftist. It's much the same way that George Soros is a billionaire, but he is socialist and globalist and woke, and if he actually got his way, he would kill the system that made him rich, but he doesn't care about the contradictions. That's BlackRock. Tens of trillions of dollars under assets and assets under management, and here's how it works. Larry Fink will invest in a company and then become a bit of an activist shareholder and say, if you don't bring in certain environmental policies like net zero, certain LGBTQ policies, certain diversity hires, we're going to give you a problem at your general meeting. We might divest your shares, and we have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of shares. That'll affect your share price.
You now make a point of that's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year, and what we're doing internally is, if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. Okay,
we're doing the same thing.
And so it's just you have to force behaviors, and if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team.
So he invests other people's money. Larry Fink himself does not have $20 trillion. Other people give it to Larry Fink to invest. So he puts it in these companies, but then he adds his own spin to it, his own politics. He says to the hundreds or the thousands of companies he invests in, you must follow my left-wing ideals. And it's an outrageous form of socialism injected right into the veins of corporations. That's why I compared it to Saul Alinsky's tactics. Anyways, it's no surprise that such a self-serving radical is now the boss of the World Economic Forum. For more than 50 years, it was Klaus Schwab, an actual son of a Nazi, who ran the World Economic Forum as his personal domain. Now, partly because of a sexual harassment fiasco and other scandals, the torch has been passed, and Larry Fink has just absorbed it as he absorbs so many other things in life.
And we hear all about the elites. And how does that play out in an age of populism? How does an established institution make a difference in an era of deep institutional mistrust? And there's some truth to the critique. I believe in this forum for a long time. I certainly wouldn't be leading this if I didn't believe that we can change and make the world better. But it's also obvious that the world now places far less trust in us to help shape what comes next. If the World Economic Forum is going to be useful going forward, it has to regain that trust.
And so they have this here, and we've gone in a couple times and they kick us out immediately because, like I say, they're about tightly controlling things, and they're not about freedom. We're not just here for a financial rate of return. we're going to force you to do. Are you interrupting? Are you interrupting us? What's your name?
Sorry to interrupt, but this is a parking space, so I just wanted to ask you to move over to...
BlackRock is so large and invests in so many things. Like, let's give the example of the war in Ukraine. BlackRock is a major investor in the arms industry. A lot of the munitions and equipment being used in the Ukraine-Russia war is to the profit of BlackRock. They're making billions of dollars off the war in Ukraine. If that war, and I hope it ends soon, when peace finally comes and the reconstruction of Ukraine begins, well, guess what? BlackRock is one of the largest investors in infrastructure, in housing. So they profit from the war, and then they profit from the peace. They've got both sides covered. Like I say, the worst people in the world. But what makes me laugh is this. This is the first year I've seen these barriers here. Normally we walk right up there. In fact, I'm going to do that right now just to see what kind of a reaction I'll get. This barrier here is new this year. Normally you can walk right up here, and there's a couple of fancy cars, like VIP cars here, and then they send their security out to shoo us away. And the reason I mentioned that they have this perimeter this time is because, like I say, Larry Fink is the chair of the World Economic Forum. And in his opening speech today, he said the theme of the World Economic Forum, Conference is spirit of dialogue, of hearing other points of view, of talking to people who you don't agree with, even if that means sometimes arguing with them.
That's the goal of this year's World Economic Forum at Davos, to expose people to wider ranges of voices, to a wider range of ideas, maybe even an argument, but one that we have deeper understanding from. And I think not all of it's going to sound as good as the one that you enjoyed at that moment, like in music. And like in music, you're not going to agree with everything. But if you're willing to listen, it might leave something with you inside. It might stay with you. And maybe you will evolve and be better for it. And that's the mission of the World Economic Forum this week in Davos.
Larry Fink says you have to listen to other points of view, but he's set up this perimeter now that says you're not even allowed to come to his sacred space. Let me read one of these signs. It says, closed for a private function, no trespassing. And indeed, they have rented this place for the week. They probably spent $250,000 or more getting this building. And that just goes to the complexity or duality of Larry Fink. You might recall that last year we actually bumped into Larry Fink not far away from here, and we peppered him with questions. Not only did he not answer the questions, but he took out his personal cell phone and he went snap, snap in the faces of me and my fellow journalists, which is weird because, of course, we publish our journalism on the time. It was his attempt to sort of scare us, I think. I've got your name, I've got your face, and now I'm going to put you in, and now I'm going to do something to you. And if I were a more paranoid man than I am, I would point out that the would-be assassin who shot Donald Trump in the ear in Butler, Pennsylvania, bizarrely appeared in a BlackRock corporate video. I mean, what are the odds that an assassin who tried to kill the president worked for these guys here? And it wasn't one of these guys. It was a young man who was obviously shot by Secret Service that day. Anyways, I'm enjoying standing on their very, very sacred driveway here. In fact, I'm going to walk over and see if there's anyone in there who would have the spirit of dialogue to talk to me. Come on, let's see what happens. How are you today? Good. I watched Larry Fink's remarks the other day about the spirit of dialogue, and I don't really believe that's true. I think BlackRock, even by putting up this perimeter fence, is saying it doesn't believe in dialogue anymore. What do you think, if it ever did?
I'm sorry, I'm not here to comment on anything like that.
Is there anything going on right now?
There isn't, no. It's all private events, all invitation only.
But it's not on right now, obviously.
I can't comment on anything.
Yeah. So this is just sort of it's typical Larry Fink sort of, I'm the boss, you can't stand here, you're trespassing. There's no other kiosk on this whole walk that has that kind of harsh language.
Again, I'm I'm not going to comment on that.
No problem. You seem like a nice guy doing your job. There's another fella back there. We probably saw him last year. It looks like there's some snacks and drinks. Well, that looks fun. I have been in there before we were spirit of dialogue out of there. Anyways, I won't take any more of your time. I just felt like standing on BlackRock's sacred territory.
All right, no problem.
Okay, you take care. Well, obviously a bodyguard here, a security guard is working for the man. But, this is Switzerland. It's not the Soviet Union. And I'm going to stand on the driveway if I damn well feel like it. And if Larry Fink doesn't like it, he can come and we'll have another round of our conversation. For Rebel News, I'm Ezra Levant. Ezra Levant here outside the BlackRock Pavilion at the World Economic Forum in Davos. We scrummed Larry Fink, BlackRock's CEO, last year. Now he runs the whole World Economic Forum. Do you think we'll be able to find him? We have a few days to try. Follow all our exploits and help chip into our crowdfunding campaign at wefreports.com.